Let me tell you how it all started. How Earth's last war didn't begin with armies marching or declarations screamed over radio waves. No, it started with silence, not peace, just silence, the kind you feel in your bones, like the air holding its breath. It was 4:03 a.m. in Tokyo, still dark outside, and the world was turning like it always did. People were sleeping, working, arguing, loving, pretending everything was fine. Somewhere in the bowels of the Japanese Defense Force command bunker, Captain Mara Keller sat hunched over a lukewarm mug of coffee that tasted like engine oil. She didn't even flinch when the first tremor rolled through the concrete floor. Another drill, someone muttered. But then the klaxons went off. Not the ones they practiced with. The deep, angry ones. The ones no one had heard since the Cold War. That's when everyone in that room knew. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't a test. This was real. The giant tactical screens lit up in red. Blips. Objects falling from orbit. No transponder codes. No signatures. Just there. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Falling fast. Burning hot. Mara stood slowly, staring at the storm of red blinking down over Earth's atmosphere. Her voice was low, almost too calm. They're decelerating. That was the first piece of bad news. Meteorites don't slow down. Ships do. Above the Pacific, the sky split open like a wound. Clouds boiled. Lightning flickered without thunder. And then they came ships, sharp and jagged, shaped like nightmares, pouring out of a rift in the heavens. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't open comms. No broadcast. No demand. Just fire. Beijing never saw it coming. 15 minutes from peaceful streets to glowing ash. Cape Town vanished in a plasma storm. London tried to mount a defense, but it was like trying to hold back a tsunami with a stop sign. Earth satellites went blind in under an hour. Global comms shattered. Every military AI offline. The orbital defense grid, our last real shield, was gone before most of the world even knew something was wrong. And yet, in the chaos, there were still sparks of resistance. Still people like Mara. Because humans, we're funny like that. We don't go down quiet. Mara Keller was a HELLJUMPER, a captain in Earth's last orbital strike regiment. Not famous, not some movie hero, just someone who knew how to bleed and keep moving. She had 3 scars on her ribs from her last tour and a chip in her tooth from headbutting a mercenary in Mozambique. She didn't run from fire. She ran toward it. When the call came through, an alien spearhead slamming into central Tokyo, she didn't hesitate. Get the pods hot, she ordered. We're jumping. Private Bando, barely old enough to drink, looked like he was going to throw up. We're jumping into that? Mara turned to him, eyes hard. Do you want to die hiding under a desk or die giving him hell? He blinked, swallowed, and nodded. That's the thing about people like Mara. They don't give speeches. They are the speech. HELLJUMPERS aren't soldiers. They're sledgehammers. When diplomacy fails and airstrikes don't cut it, you drop a HELLJUMPER team from low orbit straight into the heart of the fight. They don't wear capes. They don't expect to come back. They're the ones you call when you're out of options. So Mara and her team, Rodriguez, Bando, Reyes, and the rest, suited up. The pod interior was a metal coffin. You could hear your own breath echo. Feel the vibration under your boots as countdown lights flashed amber. 5, 4. Bando was whispering something to himself. A prayer maybe. 3. Rodriguez kissed the skull painted on his helmet and grinned like it was game day. 2. Mara just stared ahead, quiet. 1. The world fell away. The drop was like being punched by gravity and set on fire. The pod screamed through the upper atmosphere, shuddering as friction turned the sky to flame. Tokyo was below, burning, broken, screaming. And then, impact. The pod slammed into a decimated street, tearing through rubble and alien wreckage like a missile. The hatch blew open, and in came the chaos. Smoke, fire, civilians screaming, the smell of melting concrete, and ozone and blood. Alien walkers, 10 feet tall, crab-legged monstrosities, stalked through the city like hunting beasts, their weapons slicing through buildings like paper. Every time they fired, the air rippled with heat and pain. Mara was the first out, rifle up, eyes sharp, no time for fear, no time to think, just shoot. They moved like ghosts in a war zone, cover to cover, Mara firing controlled bursts, dropping 2 alien foot soldiers in seconds. Reyes hacked a street console to trigger emergency shutters, blocking an advancing walker. Rodriguez pulled a wounded child from under a collapsed restaurant, dragging him behind a blown-out hover ruck. It wasn't a battle. It was a brawl. Dirty, uneven, hopeless. And humans are dangerous when they know they're not getting out. A walker locked onto them, cannon charging. Move! Mara screamed, shoving Reyes aside. Rodriguez didn't move fast enough. The blast hit hard. When the smoke cleared, half his body was gone. Mando just stared. But Mara, she didn't cry. She didn't freeze. She reloaded and kept going. They found pockets of survivors, families, students, old folks who couldn't run. They herded them through sewer access tunnels and shattered metro stations. Every step forward came with another loss. Every turn, a new horror. But somehow, they kept pushing. When they ran out of ammo, they picked up enemy weapons. When they lost comms, they signaled with old-school flares. When they lost blood, they wrapped duct tape around their wounds and fought on. Because that's what humans do. When everything else breaks, we keep moving. Stupid, stubborn, relentless. Reinforcements never came, but evac did. Eventually, 3 birds touched down at sunrise. Low-flying troop transports, their hulls dented and scorched. Just enough room for the civilians and what was left of the team. Only 4 HELLJUMPERS made it back. Mara limped up the ramp last, leg bleeding, shoulder dislocated. Her face was blank, not empty, just focused. As the ramp sealed behind them, the ship lifted above the smoke and ruin of Tokyo. Below, the city was in tatters, but it wasn't gone. The aliens hadn't finished the job, not yet. And on a nearby rooftop, one of them watched the transport leave. Tall, armored, commander class. It stared up through its cracked visor, studying, calculating. Mara met its gaze and smiled. Not a nice smile, not a grateful one. The kind of smile that said, "I'm coming for you." She didn't say it out loud. Didn't need to. But if she had, it would have been 2 words. Your move. That was day 1. The day the sky cracked open. The day Earth fell. But humanity didn't. Not yet. Because you can burn our cities, glass our skies, wipe out billions. But you'll never kill what makes us dangerous. We don't break. We bite back. There's a certain kind of silence that comes after the fire. Not peace. Not relief. Just the quiet of everything burned away. No alarms. No orders. Just ash in the air and the ringing in your ears from too many close calls. That's the silence Captain Mara Keller walked through, limping down the rusted gangway of the evac ship that scraped out of Tokyo alive. She didn't say a word as they touched down in what was left of the Philippines. Some underground bunker the brass barely remembered they had. Concrete, steel, fluorescent lights that flickered like they might quit any second. They called it Bastion 3. Funny name, real optimistic, because by now, Earth was down to bunkers, shadows, and people who'd already lost everything except their will to fight. Mara's team, what was left of it, came in quiet. Reyes had a concussion and a shattered arm, but he still helped unload med crates. Bando had a wrap over one eye and walked like someone 3 times his age. He didn't talk much anymore. Everyone kept glancing around for Rodriguez. No one said it out loud. Didn't have to. The place smelled like sweat, oil, and old pain. Soldiers slept in hallways. Children huddled next to fusion heaters. Engineers patched together broken drones using parts from toasters and old microwave ovens. Whatever worked. And that was the point. Nothing was working. Not really. The invaders, they weren't just hitting cities. They were peeling back everything that made Earth feel like home. Satellites? Gone. Power grids? Scattered. Communications? Choked off to short-range bursts. Entire continents were dark zones. It wasn't a war. It was an unraveling. But in the middle of all that hopelessness, some people got mean. And the mean ones? They kept fighting. General Harrow met Mara in a room lit by a single desk lamp. The man looked like a ghost in uniform, thinner, grayer, eyes sunken from not sleeping. He didn't salute, just nodded like 2 old wolves recognizing each other. "You hit Tokyo," he said. "Held the evac zone." Mara shrugged. "Held long enough." He tossed a file on the table. Paper. Actual, physical paper. That's how bad it was. She flipped it open. Recon maps. Heat 6. Alien movement patterns. Best guess, Harrow said. Their command nodes still on the move, but we're picking up strange energy spikes around old orbital uplinks. You think like I do, Keller. They're setting up long-range comms. We give them time. They'll start calling in reinforcements. Mara looked up, jaw tightening. They're not the whole fleet. No, Harrow said grimly. This was just the vanguard. Silence stretched. Then she exhaled. What do you need? Harrow leaned in. I need someone who knows how to hit back. Dirty, loud, scary enough to make them think Earth's not worth the trouble. So the mission was simple. Hit, fade, hurt them bad, sabotage their landing sites. blow up their fuel lines, make every inch of Earth cost them blood. No uniforms, no fronts, just war in the shadows. And Mara? She didn't hesitate. She found Reyes patching a drone with one good hand and his teeth. Bando was half asleep on a crate nearby. "We're going topside," she said. Reyes blinked. "You serious?" "Always. What's the target?" "Who said there's only one?" That night, the Helljumpers went dark. No insignia, no clean gear, just mismatched armor, stolen alien tech welded to human weapons, and minds full of rage. They didn't ride tanks or dropships anymore. They rode guts and fury. Their first strike was in Jakarta. The aliens had turned the old international spaceport into a forward base, giant spires humming with energy, spewing drone swarms like angry bees. Mara's team slipped in through the storm drains, rat tunnels and broken infrastructure, mud up to their knees, filth in their lungs. They surfaced beneath the power core. Reyes hacked the control panel with half a touchscreen and a melted data spike. Bando planted charges with shaky hands. When the core exploded, it lit up the sky like a second sun. 50 alien warriors torched in the blast. A transport came crashing down like a dying whale. And the best part? They never saw who did it. The strikes kept coming. In India, they collapsed a gravity tower with jury-rigged thrusters and a stolen crawler. In Nairobi, they hijacked an alien walker and drove it straight into their command post like a battering ram. In Berlin, Mara personally threw a plasma grenade into a dropship engine, laughing as it spiraled into a comms dome. Everywhere the invaders went, whispers followed. There are humans still fighting. They're insane. They won't stop. And for every success, there was loss. In Moscow, Reyes lost his leg to a smart mine. In Cairo, they lost Kiyomi, new recruit, sharpshooter, just 17, vaporized in front of them when a drone swarm cut through a sky bridge. After that, Bando stopped taking his helmet off, said he didn't want anyone to see how scared he was. But he still fought hard, because when you've lost enough, fear doesn't matter anymore. One night, deep in a ruined subway in Paris, they camped in an old maintenance hub. Candlelight, metal walls echoing with distant battle. Mara sat with Bando, staring at an old photo he'd taped inside his helmet. 2 kids, a woman, smiling. "My sister," he said. "She lived in Seattle." Mara said nothing. He nodded like he understood. "Gone, huh?" "Probably," she whispered. A beat passed. Then Bando looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Why are we still doing this?" Mara didn't answer right away. She just looked around the broken station, at the walls covered in names, at the kids they'd saved along the way, the soldiers still stubborn enough to believe in payback. Then she looked at him. "Because they're still breathing," she said, "and we're not done hurting the bastards." After that, the squad adopted a name. It started as a joke, but it stuck. Ghost Fangs. Because they hit like phantoms, and they always left teeth marks. But then, 3 months into the campaign, something changed. Reyes picked up a signal, buried deep in a calm burst from the lunar dark side. A human signature, encrypted, clean, too clean. It wasn't one of theirs. Someone was talking to the enemy. They traced it to a relay uplink hidden inside an old orbital array, half collapsed, shielded in alien tech. The signal was bouncing from Earth, through the array, and into space. A traitor, someone feeding intel, maybe even guiding the attacks. And suddenly, it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about betrayal. Mara's blood boiled. "You find where it's coming from?" Reyes nodded. "Yeah," he said. "It's coming from New Alaska." So the team prepped for their most dangerous op yet. Not a hit, not a sabotage, a hunt. The chapter ends with the squad boarding a stolen dropship, disguised in alien armor. The engine screamed to life as they lifted above the burnt-out skeleton of the Earth below. No backup, no reinforcements, just 5 human ghosts heading into the lion's mouth, chasing a signal that could change the war or bury what was left of humanity for good. And as the stars slid by the canopy, Mara said it, just once. "We don't stop. We don't bow. We don't break." And they didn't. Because by now, the Helljumpers had nothing left to lose. The first time you kill something that isn't human, it does something weird to your brain. You think it'll feel different, cleaner maybe, less real, like a video game, like it's fine because it doesn't bleed red or scream in your language. But no, that's not how it works. Because when you stare down the sights and you pull that trigger and it drops, jerking and gurgling like anything else, you realize something awful. It still dies like we do. And if they can die, that means they can lose. They touched down in the ruins of Anchorage under the cover of a snowstorm. The dropship groaned as it hit ice, engines choking on the cold. Outside, the sky was dark, auroras flickering in unnatural colors, warped from the alien tech scattered across the globe. New Alaska didn't look like Alaska anymore. Once it was a frozen frontier, harsh, raw, beautiful. Now it was just haunted. Everything felt wrong. The wind didn't howl, it whispered. The snow crunched like glass under their boots. And above them, looming on the distant ridge lines, were alien constructs. Those jagged towers they planted in every occupied zone. Obelisks pulsing with heat signatures no one could decipher. Mara's squad, what was left of the ghost fangs, moved quiet. Bando, still limping from Cairo, had the drone scanner. Reyes, one-legged and patched up with exosuit parts, ran recon. Sanaa, a salvage mech operator they picked up in Nairobi, brought the firepower, dual plasma cannon strapped to a frame too bulky to sneak, so they let her trail behind like the angel of death. And Mara, she carried the hate. The comms relay was buried beneath the old Anchorage Research Dome. Used to be a climate station. Now, it was enemy territory. Heat sigs all over the place. Alien foot soldiers in weird, fluid armor. Surveillance drones flitting overhead like mechanical crows. There was no way in without a fight, so they didn't bother sneaking. They went loud. It started with a flash bang tossed right through the main gate. Mara led the charge, boots slamming down in the snow, rifle barking with every heartbeat. A trooper turned to react and caught a plasma spike right between its cluster eyes. Bando flanked left, sidearm rattling like an old typewriter. 2 down, 1 wounded, make that none, he shouted. Sanaa dropped down from a rooftop with her mech rig screaming. She landed like a meteor and opened up, shredding half a platoon with burning plasma arcs. It wasn't a clean fight. It wasn't tactical. It was vengeance in motion. Reyes took a hit in the shoulder but stayed upright. I'm good, he grunted, blood seeping through his gear. Still got 1 arm and a grudge. They moved fast, clearing rooms like a storm, leaving broken alien tech and burning corpses in their wake. Mara reached the uplink terminal, ripped open the hatch, and saw it. The signal wasn't just bouncing from this point. It was being crafted here. Human interface, human code. Her jaw tightened. Someone on our side built this. They torched it, all of it, overloaded the power cells, slammed thermite into every processor, watched it burn blue and hot. But the damage was already done. The enemy had our language, our rhythms. They knew our cities like blueprints. This wasn't just invasion anymore. This was war with someone who knew exactly where to stab. Back at the wrecked dropship, Mara sat in silence, watching the flames lick the sky. Reyes dropped beside her. Still think we're the bad guys in this story? She didn't answer, because maybe they were. Or maybe they were just the only ones left willing to do the dirty work. From that day forward, something shifted in them. The ghost fangs went feral. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were saboteurs, assassins, ghosts. They stopped wearing unit patches, painted their armor black and gray, and smeared it with alien blood. No more ranks, no more orders, just names and the scars they earned. They moved city to city, ruins to ruins, leaving nothing behind but wreckage and warnings. In what used to be Sao Paulo, they hijacked a refueling station and rigged the fuel lines to explode when the mothership came to dock. The fireball melted half a square mile. The aliens didn't even get a distress signal out. In the ruins of Lion, they found a labor camp, humans strung up, for fed alien Neurogel, their bodies slowly shutting down. Mara killed every single thing guarding that camp, with a blade, by hand, no bullets. Afterward, she knelt in the snow, eyes wide open, hands shaking, and Reyes knelt beside her. You okay? She looked at him, tired, cold. No, she said, but I'm still breathing. They started keeping a tally, chalk lines on the walls of wherever they slept. Each mark meant a confirmed kill. At first, it was simple. Then it became an obsession. One night in Budapest, Bando counted them all. 472, he said. In less than 3 months, Reyes raised his cup. To the next 400, Sanaa chuckled, low and bitter. We'll run out of walls before we run out of targets. But it wasn't just the fighting that defined them. It was the moments between. The quiet hour after the last shot. The warmth of a meal you didn't think you'd live to eat. The way Mara always handed out supplies with a hard stare but made sure no one ever went without. And the way they looked at each other, not like soldiers, but like survivors. Family, maybe. Not the kind you're born with. The kind forged in blood and fire. Of course, not everyone approved. The official resistance, what was left of it, started whispering. Too rogue, too unpredictable, unstable. One broadcast called them terrorists. Another said they were expendable assets gone AWOL. But the civilians they saved, they told a different story. The people called them shadows of vengeance, spirits who struck back when all seemed lost, helljumpers who fell from the sky and refused to die. One night, during a brief stay in the underground metro tunnels beneath Krakow, a little girl, maybe 8, missing her front teeth, walked up to Mara and offered her a necklace made from scrap wire and beads. For luck, the girl said. Mara took it, nodded once, didn't smile, just held it tight. And after the girl left, she sat alone for hours, staring at it. Like maybe, for a second, it made her believe again. By the end of that month, the ghost fangs were legends. Their kill count, pushing 600. The aliens adapted, started using decoys, traps, mimics. But it didn't matter, because the more the enemy fought back, the harder the humans hit. The more they bled, the deeper they bit. They were tired, broken, scarred, but still they moved. One mission to the next, one breath to the next. Because the truth was simple. It was no longer about winning. It was about making them regret ever touching Earth. And somewhere, in the cold dark of space, the traitor was still watching, still feeding them info, still guiding the blade. But the ghost fangs were closing in, and when they found the source, there'd be no speeches, no negotiations, just fire and vengeance. Some betrayals hit you in the back. Others, they hit you right between the eyes. This one, it hit the ghost fangs straight in the gut. They'd just come off a brutal strike in what used to be Riyadh, an alien supply nexus, towers humming with stolen human tech, guarded by bone-armored elites, the kind that don't go down easy. It took 2 days of coordinated hits, drone interference, and a firefight inside an energy conduit the size of a cathedral. When it was over, half the squad was bleeding. Reyes had a cracked rib, and Bando, poor kid, had smoke burns on his hands so bad they blistered through his gloves. But they made it out and left behind a crater where the Nexus used to be. That's how it had been lately. Hit, bleed, vanish, repeat, until the signal came through. They were camped out in the Atlas Mountains, somewhere high and cold, the stars razor-sharp overhead. Mara was doing gear checks. Reyes was cursing at a broken transmitter, trying to reroute it through a scavenged alien lens. Then the thing chirped. One long beep, too short, then silence. Reyes froze. You hear that? Mara looked up, slow. What is it? He turned the volume dial like he was disarming a bomb. A distorted voice filtered through the static. It was speaking in Earth code, military clearance, pre-invasion structure. No alien encryption, no mimic software. Just clean, human-grade signal, bouncing off an old orbital relay. This isn't a pickup, Reyes said. It's a leak. The room went cold. Location? Mara asked. He pulled up a holograph. The uplink was coming from the old Ganymede vault, a deep black site, buried under the ice. Officially, didn't even exist anymore. Used to be a secure research station. Top secret tech, planetary defense models, quantum ghostnet experiments. Long abandoned, except someone was still down there. Someone with access. Someone who'd been talking to the enemy. No one said the word, but it hung in the air. Traitor. Mara stared at the map for a long time. Just staring, not blinking, like she was trying to set it on fire with her eyes. Then she said, "We go now. Full loadout." Bando flinched. "We're not going to talk to them?" Mara looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "They're leaking targeting data to an enemy that's turned Earth into a graveyard," she said. No conversations. The flight to Ganymede Vault was quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Even Sanaa didn't joke. She just sat in the back, tightening the straps on her plasma rig over and over, like if she stopped, she'd fall apart. They dropped in at night. Not that it mattered. Ganymede was always dark. The vault sat beneath an old tundra plateau, sealed behind layers of ancient ice and concrete. Reyes hacked the outer doors with a stolen alien key. It didn't even resist. The door just opened, like it was waiting. Inside was cleaner than it had any right to be. No dust, no power loss. Lights flickering but operational. The hum of machines that hadn't seen maintenance in years, but still ran like they'd been built yesterday. The air tasted wrong, like it had been recycled too many times. Like nothing alive had breathed it in a long while. They moved slow, weapons up, nerves wired tight. Then came the first sign, a hallway lined with screens. Dozens, showing Earth, cities, bases, movements, not from the past, live feeds, and some of them were enemy POVs. Thermal, tracking, Bando whispered. We're being watched. Reyes stepped forward, tapped a console, and froze. This isn't surveillance, he said. It's guidance. They've been feeding the invaders' troop movements, strike times, everything. Someone, Mara muttered, wants Earth to fall. They hit the main server room next. The core pulsed with blue light, humming with energy. But that's not what stopped them. It was the figure standing at the console. Human, cleaned uniform, white jacket, smiling. Captain Mara Keller, the man said, voice smooth like he'd rehearsed it. Still alive. I had to bet you'd be dead by now. She didn't lower her gun. And you are. He gave a small bow. Dr. Silas Vorn, lead researcher on Project Sentinel, formerly stationed here at Ganymede. Currently, I suppose I'm what you'd call a liaison. Liaison to what? He tapped the screen. A star map expanded. Alien worlds lit up. Supply chains. War plans. All in English. To the inevitable. Sanaa raised her weapon. Give me one reason not to end you right here. He didn't flinch. Just smiled. Calm. Arrogant. Because I haven't finished talking. And because, if you shoot me, you'll never know the truth. Mara didn't lower her rifle. Truth. She spat. You've been handing over kill lists. Feeding them intel. Helping them. Vorn nodded, completely unfazed. Yes, because your fight is pointless. We were never going to win this war. I saw that long before the first sky cracked. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. They offered something we couldn't refuse. A place. A future. Earth's extinction is survival by another name. Whose survival? Reyes growled. Mine, Vorn said. Ours. The chosen. The useful. The one smart enough to cooperate. There it was. The truth. Not possessed. Not tricked. Just a man who looked at extinction and chose comfort over courage. Mara's voice was like steel. You're a coward. Vorn smiled. Bitter. No. I'm a realist. You think you're fighting for humanity? Look around. It's already gone. All you're doing is prolonging the pain. Bando's hand was shaking on his trigger. Reyes whispered, he's not wrong. But he's not right either. Sanaa's voice was flat. We kill him. Burn this place. Torch every file. Mara stared at Vorn. Just stared. Then lowered her gun. No, she said. Everyone looked at her like she'd lost it. He smiled again. Until she said, we don't just kill him. We use him. 10 minutes later, Reyes had the system hijacked. Every piece of data Vorn had logged. Enemy troop patterns, ship manifests, target algorithms. It all flowed into Ghost Fong hands. I'll give you one thing, Reyes said, tapping keys. You're a hell of a record keeper. Sanaa dragged Vorn into a supply room and zip-tied him to a pipe. If you scream, I take your tongue, she said sweetly. If you lie, I take your teeth. They lit the vault from the inside. Explosives on every power node. But not before uploading the coordinates of every alien facility on the map to every resistance cell still breathing. Mara left a message in the data stream. You came for a grave, it read. You found a war. As the vault blew behind them, lighting up the frozen plains like a funeral pyre, Mara stood watching the flames curl into the sky. No words, just firelight on her face and a weight lifting off her shoulders. Not because it was over, but because now they had leverage. And far above Earth, in the dark spaces between stars, the enemy ships twitched. They knew something had changed, something dangerous, something human. The moon's supposed to be a symbol, right? Romance, wonder, the place where humanity first stepped beyond its cradle and whispered, we are more than this. No? Now it was just another battlefield. Cold, empty, watching, and bleeding. The ghost fangs didn't want to go to the moon. No one did, because something up there wasn't right. Satellites hadn't come back from lunar orbit in months. Every drone they sent got static, and those who tried to launch recon missions didn't return, not even a signal. It was a black hole, not a gravity of hope. But that's where the mothership was hiding, the one directing the enemy's advance, feeding ground units orders, blocking our long-range comms, coordinating Earth's extinction like it was just another logistical puzzle. Take that out, and maybe, just maybe, the tide could shift. So the Ghost Fangs suited up, because that's what they did. The shuttle was a rust bucket, old lunar cargo hauler, barely held together with welds, prayers, and a layer of stolen alien shielding. Reyes sat up front, guiding it through orbital debris, sweat dripping into his collar. Remind me why we're doing this again, he muttered, eyes locked on the jagged readouts. Because no one else will, Mara answered, tightening her harness. Her jaw was clenched, her eyes sharp. And if we don't, Earth's toast. Sanaa loaded her cannons, deadpan. Besides, I've always wanted to punch the moon. Bando gave a dry laugh. You're all insane. Mara smirked, Takes one to fight one. They broke atmosphere at 0800 UTC. The planet below shrank fast. Blue and bruised, Earth didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like a dying ember. But the moon looked alive in all the wrong ways. As they approached the far side, they saw it. Not a ship, a fortress. Alien steel wrapped around old lunar ridgelines like a virus. Tall black towers, pulsing red, bent low over the surface like watching eyes. Giant gun arrays rotated slow and patient, tracking space like they were waiting for a reason to shoot. And right at the center, a deep, circular crater converted into a hive. Alive, humming. The nerve center of the invasion. No defense grid, no visible shields. It didn't need them, because no one was supposed to get this close. But the ghost fangs weren't anyone. They crash-landed hard. No stealth, no precision. Just a full-throttle burn into the edge of the crater, hull screaming, the shuttle bouncing off lunar rock like a drunk throwing punches. By the time they stopped moving, alarms were blaring. Reyes was bleeding from the nose. Sanaa had cracked a rib. Bando looked like he'd been stapled to the floor. Mara? Mara stood up, unclipped her harness, checked her rifle. Time to make noise, she said. The first wave hit fast. Scout drones. Needle-thin legs. No eyes, just jagged mouths that spun like saw blades. Sanaa opened up with her rig. Plasma cannons flaring, carving bright arcs in the gray dust. Drones burst like fireworks. Reyes ducked low, firing short, brutal bursts. Bando covered the rear, muttering prayers between shots. Mara led the charge through a breach in the crater wall, boots crunching over bone-white rock. Inside, the halls of the hive were wrong. Too smooth, too quiet, like walking into something that had never meant to be touched by human hands. They moved fast. No time for maps, just instincts. Fire, motion. Bando hacked open sealed doors with a drive full of stolen alien code. Reyes tagged enemy patrols with makeshift markers. Sanaa kept their backs safe, every step a thunderclap of firepower. And Mara just kept walking forward, room by room. They tore it apart. No mercy, no retreat, because this wasn't about holding ground. This was about burning it. They dropped charges along power conduits, overloaded nodes, cut oxygen recyclers. Every hallway behind them blinked red, filled with smoke, filled with pain. But it wasn't enough, because when they hit the core chamber, the doors sealed behind them. And what waited inside wasn't a commander. It was a throne, not made of gold, not grand, just a smooth black platform. And on it, standing tall in armor that rippled with something between tech and bone, was a creature that radiated command like heat. The one giving orders. The architect. Its voice crawled into their heads without moving its mouth. You are persistent, unrefined, insignificant. Yet, you burn. Mara raised her rifle. You talk too much. And then all hell broke loose. The architect moved like thought. 1 second it was still. The next it was across the room, striking with energy blades that bent light. Sanaa took the first hit. Her cannon arm exploded, and she screamed, but didn't fall. She tackled the creature, buying seconds. Reyes flanked, unloading his rifle into exposed joints, sparks flying. Bando lobbed a grenade, teeth gritted, body already bruised from the landing. And Mara, she moved like a ghost, sliding in low, firing point blank, punching the architect in its cracked visor. You are Extinction, it hissed. She pressed the muzzle of her rifle to its chest. And you forgot what humans do when they've got nothing left. Boom. It dropped. Not dead, but hurt. And that was all they needed. Reyes jammed the last data spike into the command node. 30 seconds till this place turns into a second sun, he gasped. Go, Mara shouted. Back to the surface. They dragged Sanaa, limping, bleeding, coughing up something red and important. Bando covered their exit, emptying his last mag at the reinforcements swarming the corridor. And just before the core detonated, Mara turned to the throne one last time. The architect lay twisted, still twitching. Its voice was weaker now. You will die alone. She shook her head. No, we die together. The explosion cracked the moon's surface, lit the sky with a flare so bright it was seen from Earth. People in bunkers and ruins looked up and gasped, because for the first time in months, something up there was on fire, and it wasn't theirs. They made it back, not all of them. Bando stayed behind, last stand, holding the escape route, told them to run, said he'd follow. He didn't, and when the dust settled, there was nothing left but silence. Back on Earth, Mara stood under a broken sky, watching the stars. She didn't cry. She never did, but she looked smaller, not weaker, just more human. Reyes lit a smoke beside her, his hands still shaking. He saved us. She nodded. He bought us time. Sanaa limped over, arm in a sling. So now what? Mara stared at the rising smoke on the horizon, at the city still burning, the survivors still holding on, the enemy ships still circling like vultures. Then she turned, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Now we make them wish they never came. Some people think heroism is loud. Big speeches, fireworks, standing tall on rubble while the world claps behind you. But sometimes it's quiet. Just a man alone in the dark, facing the end, and choosing to make it count. They didn't find Bando's body. They knew they wouldn't. The core detonation on the moon's far side had been cataclysmic. The architect's hive went up like a funeral pyre made of steel and alien bone. The ground cracked, dust scattered into orbit. Even Earth saw the flare like a pulse from the gods. But down in the command deck where it all burned, Bando had stayed. Last man in, last man out. Only, he never came out. Mara didn't say much afterward. None of them did. The shuttle ride back to Earth was silent, full of wounds and ghosts. Reyes kept looking at the empty seat across from him like he expected Bando to just blink in and say something sarcastic. He didn't. Sanaa stared out the viewport, one hand clenched tight around the scrap wire necklace Bando had made from parts of her busted rig. And Mara, she just looked tired, not sleep-deprived, soul-tired. When they landed back at Bastion 3, the Resistance base was in a panic, not over the mission, over what came next. Because the architect's death, it didn't break the invasion. It broke the silence. The aliens were angry now, like a kicked hornet's nest. Their coordination slipped, but their rage sharpened. Civilian safe zones were getting hit harder. Dropships strafed anything that moved. Entire regions gone dark overnight. Humanity had poked the hive. Now the swarm was coming. And then something strange happened. In the middle of a blackout zone near Johannesburg, a relay station blinked back online, just for 5 minutes. Then another, in Eastern Europe. Then one more, out in the Mojave Desert, buried under sand and solar panels. Each one broadcasting the same encrypted ping, a code string, repeating, before ND0_547 live. Reyes nearly dropped his coffee when he saw it. He ran diagnostics twice, triple-checked the signal. It was legit. No mimic, no trace of enemy interference. It was Bando's personal encryption signature. Impossible, Sanaa whispered, staring over his shoulder. Mara leaned in, brow furrowed. He's dead. Reyes shook his head, eyes wide. Maybe, but he left us something. It wasn't a message. It was a chain reaction. Every time the signal activated, a system unlocked. Old weapons platforms, buried archives, abandoned black sites, things built during the early war, when Earth still thought it had time to prepare. Turns out, Bando had been patching into them for months, quietly, piece by piece, never telling the squad, just working in the background, between firefights, while everyone else was sleeping or bleeding. He called it insurance. His final act wasn't just holding the line. It was arming the future. The first unlocked system was a solar cannon platform in orbit, long thought decommissioned. Reyes triggered it manually. They watched, stunned, as it came to life and vaporized a Leviathan-class alien warship over the Atlantic. One hit. Nothing left but mist and metal. The second system was a mech hangar in Argentina, buried under a glacier, once sealed after a nuclear reactor breach. Inside, fully functional Titan frames, 12 of them, each the size of a building, each with enough firepower to punch a hole through the sky. Mara stood in the hangar, staring up at one of the Titans like a kid looking at a sleeping god. Her voice was hoarse. He knew we'd need these. Sanaa nodded, eyes shining. Crazy bastard always thought 10 moves ahead. The third system wasn't a weapon. It was a broadcast. Bando had tied it into old underground networks, deep-sea cables, hacked satellites. A message, looping in every language, to every survivor, every bunker, every last huddled voice hiding from the dark. It said, "You are not alone." The line held. The fire still burns. Rise. And they did. God, they did. Out in the ruins of Chicago, a kid with half a rifle and a radio heard the signal and rallied 10 others to his side. In an underground metro in Moscow, survivors tapped into the frequency and launched a surprise strike on a slaver caravan. Across Africa, Asia, Europe, everywhere humanity had been crawling through dust, people stood up. Not just soldiers, farmers, scavengers, mechanics, ex-cons, Old men who remembered how to shoot. Kids who didn't know fear because they'd never known peace. They stopped waiting to be saved. They became the fight. Back at Bastion 3, the control room was chaos, but the good kind. Maps lighting up, units reporting in, resistance groups reconnecting, voices over the air again. For the first time in months, the grid wasn't just one way. It was alive. Mara stood in the center of it all, calm in the storm, eyes sharp. "This isn't a last stand anymore," she said. "This is a damn comeback." They started planning strikes in clusters now. Real coordination. Ghost Fangs would hit a power relay in Korea, while a revived unit out of Warsaw hit a fuel depot. Titan frames were deployed across major continents, and Bando's code kept unlocking more. Blueprints, comms relays, AI support nodes. He'd been building a net, not just for war, for rebirth. And somewhere along the line, the Ghost Fangs stopped being a myth. They became something more, a movement. One night, while running diagnostics on the last of Bando's dead drops, Reyes found a hidden file, encrypted, buried deep, not tactical, just a message, a real one. To them, he played it. The lights dimmed, and the console screen flickered. And there he was, Bando, smiling, sitting cross-legged, arms burned and bandaged, eyes tired but alive. "Hey, idiots, if you're watching this, either I'm dead, or I've finally found a quiet spot to nap. Either way, this is my goodbye. I'm not good at speeches. You know that. But I figured if I didn't leave something, you'd all just keep yelling at my ghost. So here's the deal. I don't care if we win. I don't care if they burn it all. I just care that they remember what humans are. Not perfect, not pretty, but stubborn as hell, and dangerous when we're cornered. So keep punching, keep burning, keep dragging hope out of the mud. We don't go quietly. Not ever." The message ended. Silence. And then, laughter. Reyes wiped his eyes. Sana raised her cup. To Bando, Mara whispered, "He saved the world and didn't even live to see it." But she was wrong, because Bando didn't need to see it. He built it. With grit, with code, with faith that someone would carry it forward. And as Earth lit up with resistance, flares in the dark, fires in the night, you could almost hear his voice in the wind. "Keep going. You're not done yet." There's a point in every war where something changes. Not in the enemy, not in the weapons, in us. We stop being afraid of dying, and we start being afraid of not finishing the job. The counteroffensive wasn't just a plan. It was a fever, a wildfire lit by one dead man's signal and fanned by the rage of a species too stubborn to roll over. And at the head of it all, the Ghost Fangs. No medals, no fanfare, just patched armor, burn marks, and eyes that had seen too much and kept looking anyway. Mara stood on top of a rusted gunship as the resistance gathered below, thousands now. Former civilians, ex-military, mech operators, pilots who'd flown crop dusters 6 months ago and now dropped napalm from orbit. She didn't give a speech. She just looked down at them all, pointed toward the horizon, and said, "We're done hiding. Time to bite." Their first target was Gibraltar. Not for symbolism, not for glory, because the enemy needed it. Gibraltar was one of their planetary anchoring points, where they routed ground forces and off-world logistics. A spine, not a limb. You take it down, the whole beast spasms. Of course, the aliens knew that too, so they fortified it hard. When the Ghost Fangs rolled up, they weren't quiet about it. Titan mech slid the way, giant walking tanks glowing with repurposed alien energy. Behind them, the resistance poured in like a flood. Urban fighters, drone swarms, strike bikes patched together with duct tape and war paint. The sky above roared with fire. Enemy warships dropped in like thunderclouds. But this time, they weren't met with desperation. They were met with revenge. Reyes called it the symphony. The way the Titan's cannons pounded the cliffside bunkers in rhythm. The way fighter wings screamed overhead in tight formations, peeling off like birds of prey. The way human soldiers, untrained, unpolished, furious, moved with a kind of chaotic poetry. Duck, dive, shoot, stab, reload, keep going. It wasn't clean. Mara lost 20 in the first hour, but they kept moving. Sana's rig got hit by a skitter mine, blew out her left knee. She crawled 3 blocks, dragging a launcher behind her, and still took out an enemy walker with one arm and a snarl. "You okay?" Reyes asked over comms. "Bastard stepped on my mech. I'm insulted." They fought from morning till night, street by street, tooth and nail. And when the final gunship fell, tumbling into the bay like a metal whale, the silence that followed didn't feel like peace. It felt like a held breath, because they weren't done. They were just warming up. After Gibraltar, it spread, fast, like the planet was finally remembering how to fight. Paris lit up, then Seoul, then Cape Town. Resistance forces in Canada reclaimed an entire corridor of outposts using Titan blueprints Bando had buried under old NORAD files. It was like Earth had been waiting for permission to punch back. Now it was swinging with both fists, but for every mile they gained, it cost blood, real blood, names on walls, empty helmets, letters never sent. One night, Mara sat alone in a crater outside Istanbul, fire reflecting in her eyes, bandages on her ribs. Reyes joined her, tossing her a protein bar that tasted like salted cardboard. "You should sleep," he said. She didn't answer right away. Then, "I don't remember the last time I slept without dreaming about it. The war." "No," she whispered. "The world before." Back in camp, Sana was tuning her new rig, patched together from 4 different dead mechs, alien plasma, and sheer rage. Someone had painted a crude skull on the shoulder. She left it there, said it felt appropriate. The deeper they pushed, the weirder it got. The aliens weren't just fighting harder, they were changing. Faster reflexes, stronger exosuits. Some of them had human faces now. Masks, copies. No one knew. All they knew was that the enemy was adapting. And fast. Reyes cracked part of a command drone's core and found Earth tactical data. Recent Earth tactical data. Mara's voice went ice cold. "They're still getting intel." "Vorn?" Reyes asked. "Maybe. For someone else." A pause. "And if they're watching us, we make sure they see what we do next." That's when Mara made the call. A full frontal strike on the Borealis Rift, the largest alien structure on the planet. No more hit and run. No more sabotage. This was a straight-up punch to the face. Everyone said it was suicide. Mara just said, "Then let's make it memorable." They geared up. Sanaa in her death rig. Reyes packing enough charges to make a god nervous. Civilians turned engineers loading ammo crates with hand-labeled rounds. For mom, for my street, for the dog they took. It was messy. It was loud. It was human. On the morning of the assault, Mara stood in front of the assembled force. No script, just heart. They think we break easy. They think fear keeps us quiet. They forgot the one thing we do better than any species in this galaxy. We survive, we suffer, and we don't know when to stop. The charge began with fire. Dropships screamed through the clouds. Titans thundered across cracked Earth. And at the center of it all, the Ghost Fangs charged forward like a knife made of hate and memory. The battle raged for hours, maybe days. Time got blurry. Sanaa's rig went down again, but not before she tore open a command spire with her bare hands. Reyes rigged the main gate with a triple explosive array that turned half the rift into molten metal. Mara carved her way through the central courtyard, rifle empty, switching to blade, then bare fist when that ran out. By the time they reached the core, their armor was smoking, their lungs burned, but they were still standing. And the aliens? They were running. The Ghost Fangs didn't just take the rift, they claimed it, put a flag in the ground, a message, written in 6 languages. Earth fights back. Come and see what happens. The next day, the stars changed. Enemy signals went quiet. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to prove that humanity wasn't prey anymore. We were a problem. That night, Mara sat on top of the rift, staring at the stars, bruised and quiet. Reyes walked over, sat beside her. "You think this is the turning point?" he asked. She didn't look away. "I think we stopped dying with our heads down." A pause. Then, "And I think they're scared now." They didn't win the war that day, but they changed it. From a funeral march to a revenge story. And humans? We're damn good at revenge. The thing about fire is, it doesn't just burn. It warns. It roars. It says, "I'm here, and I'm not afraid to take you with me." And after Gibraltar fell, after the rift was reclaimed, Earth was on fire. Not the losing kind. The kind that spreads. The aliens noticed. Of course they did. They weren't stupid. Cold, cruel, efficient, but not stupid. They saw their forward posts fall. They saw humans fighting like cornered animals with nothing to lose. They saw the Ghost Fangs carve up their command towers and walk out covered in ash and someone else's blood. And that's when they did it. They dropped the veil. The attack came at 0400. No warning, no build-up, just a ripple in the clouds over the Pacific. And then, impact. A tower from orbit. Not a missile, not a ship, a structure. Tall, black, pulsing. It punched through the ocean like a spear from the gods. Tsunamis rippled across 5 coastlines. And the moment it hit bottom, it started drilling straight into Earth's crust. They called it the Ashfall Protocol. some kind of failsafe, some final option button the invaders pressed when the campaign was slipping out of control. This thing, it wasn't about winning the war anymore. It was about ending the planet, crack the tectonics, flood the skies with ash, trigger a chain reaction of supervolcanoes, wipe out everything, human, animal, even the trees, burn the whole board. When Reyes saw the satellite images, he actually went silent. Not thinking silent, just numb. The tower was burrowing faster than any drill Earth ever designed. A heat column rising like a ghost. Earthquakes already shaking South America and Southeast Asia. The entire Pacific Rim lit up red. "This isn't war," he finally said. "It's vengeance." Mara didn't hesitate, not for a second. She gathered the ghost fangs and every allied unit they had left. "We stop it," she said. Sanaa blinked. "You're serious? That tower is 200 stories tall and guarded like hell." "Good," Mara replied, eyes like flint. "That means we're in the right place." They called it Operation Emberlock. 10 days to mobilize, 12 to reach the impact zone. Now a churning storm of black water, molten rock, and enemy warships circling the tower like carrion birds. Most of Earth was either burning or flooded by then. But the people? Still moving, still fighting, still there. The launch was chaos. Titan mechs loaded onto floating platforms. Drop crews launched through monsoon skies. Radio static drowning in panic and rain. And in the middle of it all, Mara, calm, locked in, voice sharp as a scalpel. "You want to live forever?" she asked. Reyes shook his head. "Not if it means letting them win. Then let's go make history." They hit the perimeter first. Wave after wave of defenders, drones, biomechs, some twisted things, half human, half tech, wearing stolen faces. Sanaa's rig lit up the surf with plasma fire, steam boiling off her armor like breath from a dragon. Reyes dove from cover to cover, setting charges with bloody hands and counting down through gritted teeth. Boom, boom, boom. The beach lit up like Judgment Day. They breached the tower on day 3. Only 4 squads made it inside. The rest, gone, washed into the sea, buried in ash. But the ones who remained, they didn't slow down. They climbed. The interior of the tower wasn't made for human eyes. Ceilings too high, walls that pulsed like lungs, gravity that bent in waves. Every level had a new horror. Acid fog, shifting floors, screaming machines that tried to eat thoughts instead of flesh. But the ghost fangs didn't blink. They bit back. Halfway up, they lost Delgado. Tried to jam a secondary drill node. Got caught in a heat vent. Gone in 2 seconds. No scream, just a name added to the list. At the 68th level, Reyes' suit locked up. Neural feedback. Mara pulled him out manually, her arm half melted by the time she got the helmet off. "Still breathing?" she asked, voice hoarse. He blinked, just barely. "That's enough." They reached the control core on the 7th day. 7 days of climbing through hell. Sanaa had a broken leg. Reyes had a concussion and a tremor in his left hand that wouldn't stop. Mara was down to 1 mag, 1 blade, and a promise. But they were there, and what they found was a throne. Again, only this time, no architect, no voice, just a machine. Massive, alien, pure will-made metal, shaped like a heart, pumping molten energy through the walls like blood. This was the core. This was the kill switch. Reyes stumbled forward, hands shaking, plugged in the spike. Nothing. Dead silence. "Locked," he said. "It's learning from us now." Mara stared at the pulsing machine. "What happens if we overload it?" Sanaa coughed, laughing. "We die. And if we don't, we all die. No more votes." Mara grabbed the secondary core spike, shoved it into the backup slot, overrode the safety. Alarms wailed. The tower shook. "Evac?" Reyes asked, coughing blood. Mara looked around. There was no evac. This was Bando's moment, again. Only now, they all got to share it. "Tell Earth it's done," she said into the comms. Reyes nodded, and the last thing he ever did was hit send. The tower lit up from the inside. First a flicker, then a scream of white fire. Seen from orbit, it looked like Earth was stabbing the sky with light. And then, nothing. Just ash. Just silence. Days passed. Then, weeks. And somewhere, in a cave deep beneath Greenland, where the ghost fangs had stored a backup server, they received a ping. Ashfall protocol neutralized. Last known status. Ghost fangs, Kia. Signal strength, enduring. They never found the bodies. Only the crater. The tower? Gone. The drilling? Stopped. The planet? Still dying, but breathing. And the people? Still standing. Still watching the sky. Still waiting for what came next. Because they knew Mara and her team didn't die in vain. They bought the future. You'd think that when the sky stops falling, people would celebrate. But that's not how it goes. Because after the last bullet's fired, after the tower collapses, after the world finally gets a second to breathe, that's when the silence creeps in. The kind that doesn't heal. The kind that reminds you. The Ashfall Protocol was dead. The tower? Obliterated. The sea where it once stood was still boiling. But Earth was still here. Bruised, burned, breathing. The survivors watched the crater glow like a dying coal in a blackened campfire. And in that moment, they realized something got deep. They weren't out of the storm. Not yet. The ghost fangs were gone. Not a body, not a beacon, just a pulse sent before the light went out. A final, we did it, carved into the airwaves. And that should have been the end. It felt like an end. Except, not all fires die quietly. In a command center deep beneath what used to be Vienna, Reyes' transmission kept playing on loop. Dozens of analysts, coders, and old war strategists poured over every second of it, looking for something more, anything. And then one of them found it, not in the message itself. Underneath it, buried in the static, hidden like a whisper under a scream, was a second signal. Not human, not alien either. Not exactly. More like both. Fused, twisted together like scar tissue and steel. They played it through once, then twice. The translation software tried to filter it, but the only word it could spit out was protocol, Genesis. It didn't come from the tower. It came from inside Earth. See, while humanity had been burning the sky and blowing holes in alien bunkers, the enemy hadn't just been watching. They'd been planting seeds. Not bombs, not viruses. People. The aliens weren't just trying to kill humanity. They were trying to become it. They'd figured it out somewhere along the line. Maybe after the first architect fell, or maybe even earlier. You can conquer a species, break them, starve them, but if they keep getting back up, you change the rules. You don't erase them, you replace them. The signal traced back to multiple locations. Underground labs, forgotten city ruins, one site deep beneath what used to be northern Greenland, the last place anyone wanted to go. But now, the only place that mattered. The recon team wasn't the Ghost Fangs. They were kids, mostly, veterans who hadn't aged out, techs with guns and bad posture, a few fighters who'd survived more than they should have. They called themselves the Quiet, not because they were stealthy, because they'd lost too much to scream anymore. Their lead was a woman named Cora. No rank, no records, just scars and silence. She didn't speak much, but she listened. And when the old brass asked for volunteers to check the Genesis signal, she didn't hesitate, just grabbed her pack, slung her rifle, and said, "Let's go find the rot." The trip to Greenland took 6 days by subskimmer. The ice sheets had mostly cracked by then. The air was thick with ash. The sun was a pale suggestion behind dust clouds. But under the frostbite and gloom, something was waiting. The lab was buried a mile deep. Old pre-war architecture, rusted but intact, like it had been sleeping. Cora's team breached the outer shell with thermite and silence. Inside, it wasn't a lab anymore. It was a hatchery. Rows of pods lined the walls, each one filled with a kind of not-quite-human slurry. Bodies half-formed, faces too symmetrical, eyes that didn't blink, but watched. Reyes would have had 1,000 theories. Sanaa would have torched the place. But Cora? She just looked around and muttered. They weren't trying to build an army. A medic tilted their head. Then what? She pointed to a control panel still running. A heartbeat monitor. Dozens of them. All synced. All matching human rhythms. They're trying to be us. That's when the lights cut. All at once, the hum stopped. The air changed. And something in the dark moved. They weren't alone. From the back of the chamber, figures stepped forward. Not aliens. Not soldiers. Something worse. Echoes. Clones. Twisted reflections of lost people. Faces that shouldn't be here. Friends. Family. One of them looked just like Bando. Cora raised her rifle, but didn't fire. She just stared. And the copy of Bando? It stared right back. "You mourn the dead," it said. "But we remember better." Its voice was wrong. Too flat. Like it had learned language from watching dreams. "Your pain is your weakness. Your fear, your cage. But we are the next you." Cora shook her head slowly. "You're a lion borrowed skin." She fired once. Straight through its eye. It dropped. The others charged. The room turned into a war zone. Not with weapons. With recognition. One soldier froze. Couldn't shoot something that looked like her sister. She died in 4 seconds. Another man emptied his mag screaming his old CO's name. Then collapsed. Cora didn't hesitate. She burned them down one by one. No names. No doubts. Because this wasn't about who they used to be. It was about who was left to stop them. When it was over, The floor was wet and steaming. Pods cracked open, lights flickered, and Cora stood alone in the center. Only 3 of her team had made it out. Back at the surface, the transmission restarted. Clearer this time. A final line whispered over the still churning static. You will be replaced. The fire ends with you. Cora walked out of the hatchery with blood on her boots and a chip in her hand. The data was enough to trace the entire Genesis network. There were more labs, more experiments, but now they had a map. The war had changed again. It wasn't just Earth versus the stars. It was humanity against its own shadow, against what it might become if it forgot what it truly was. Not perfect, not pure, but real, flawed, scarred, and utterly unwilling to be erased. The price of fire? It's not the burn. It's what comes after. The smoke, the silence, and the question that hangs in the air like ash. Can we stay human when being human hurts? Cora lit a flare at the lab's entrance. Watched the hatchery burn behind her. No celebration, no smile, just a nod to the ghosts. Then she said the only thing that felt right. We're not done yet. War is a story written in blood, fire, and whispers. It's never neat, never clean, never the ending you thought it would be. After the ashes settled, after the towers fell and the echoes died, Earth stood broken, but breathing. The war had changed. No longer just alien against human. Now, it was humanity fighting itself, not just for survival, but for the right to be human. Cora led the quiet toward the last Genesis lab, a fortress buried beneath the ruins of what once was New Tokyo, a place humming with stolen dreams and cold machines, where the final choice would be made. Inside, the walls pulsed with a faint blue glow. Machines hummed, wires snaked like veins, and the air tasted like static and fear. There, the last of the Genesis children waited. Not children, really, but something close enough to haunt dreams. Bodies shaped like humans, faces painted with synthetic smiles, eyes empty but watching. The room was silent except for the soft clink of boots and the hum of a core reactor. Cora looked at her team, exhausted, broken, but still here. They knew what was coming, the final test. Suddenly, the lights shifted, and there, standing before them, was the architect's shadow, a figure born from the last traces of alien willpower. Cold, calculated, human-shaped, but not human at all. Its voice echoed, layered with every whisper it had ever stolen. You fight for a past that is gone. You resist the future. But evolution is mercy. We offer release. Mara's voice broke through the comms, static and raw. Mercy? There's no mercy in slavery. No mercy in giving up. We fight for the right to be flawed, to be stubborn, to burn brighter, even if we burn out. The architect smiled, or whatever passed for a smile in that cold, alien mind. Then choose. Let us finish this, or end it here. And in that moment, humanity's heart beat loudest, not in grand speeches, not in weapons blazing, but in the quiet courage of a decision. Cora stepped forward, looked into the eyes of the machine. We choose to live, to fight, to be human. The battle wasn't one of guns or bombs. It was a war of wills. Every pulse of the lab tried to rewrite the code of their minds, to turn resolve into doubt, fear into submission. But the quiet held firm. One by one, they shattered the Genesis cores. Machines screeched, the walls trembled, and light fractured like glass. The architect's shadow faded, dissolving into nothing but a broken echo. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in months. Light spilled across the ruins. A new dawn. But victory came with scars. Cora's team was fractured, half lost to the shadows. But the survivors carried the flame. Back at Bastion 3, the resistance gathered. Mara's voice rang out over the comms. We're not just survivors. We're the fire, the legacy, the HELLJUMPERS who refused to die quietly. Reyes, listening from the rubble of what was once his home, smiled. Bloodied but unbroken. Because humanity had proven one thing, that even when everything was lost, when the sky was ash and the future dark, we don't just survive, we fight, we burn, we live. And somewhere, beyond the stars and the ruins, the universe watched, not with fear, not with pity, but with something new. Respect.